I am Victoria Pierce, 27, and literally just last weekend, my carefully curated role as the family peacekeeper completely blew up in my face. You know that calm, steady presence that keeps family dinners bearable and smooths over arguments about politics or past grudges? Yeah, that was me. And trust me, keeping the peace had become my specialty after Dad died. But Patricia, my dad's second wife and certified family villain, just obliterated any sense of harmony I'd spent years building. It all happened at Sunday brunch, of all places, at Dad's house, the one place I felt closest to him since we lost him 8 months ago. The house was a warm brick colonial where I'd grown up, each room brimming with childhood memories and echoes of my father's laughter. Patricia had always hated it, preferring something flashier, newer, colder, something that screamed status instead of comfort. As we sat around the polished oak dining table, coffee cups clinking softly, Patricia cleared her throat dramatically. "I have news," she began, her voice dripping with that false sweetness I'd learned to dread. "I've decided it's time to move on from this place. I've sold the house." The air was sucked out of my lungs. My chest tightened painfully, and my hand froze mid-reach for the sugar bowl. Patricia's eyes glinted with malicious satisfaction as the words sank in. Across the table, Carly, my stepsister, who never missed a chance to align herself with her mother, shot me a smug smile, clearly relishing my shock. "You sold it?" My voice trembled, barely above a whisper. Patricia sipped her mimosa delicately, arching one perfectly penciled eyebrow. "Yes, Victoria, it's done. It's not as if you ever really belonged here anyway. Your father would have understood. Life moves forward." Her casual dismissal ignited a slow-burning rage in my chest, a feeling that mixed dangerously with my grief. My father would never have understood. He cherished this home and everything it represented. He spent countless weekends gardening, repainting trim and meticulously restoring every antique fixture, proudly sharing each improvement with me. I couldn't count how many late nights we'd spent here, just the two of us, chatting about life, love, dreams, and Patricia's endless schemes. He saw through her perfectly coiffed facade. He knew her game. "I don't believe you," I finally spat, glaring at her. My voice was steady now, anger overshadowing the hurt. "You had no right." "Oh, Victoria," Patricia replied coolly, leaning forward just enough to intimidate. "This is my house now. It's about time you grew up and accepted that." My blood boiled, and I could see Carly silently cheering her mother's cruelty, practically vibrating with delight. The rest of the family stared awkwardly into their plates, too cowardly to challenge Patricia's tyranny. But her cold arrogance sparked something fierce within me. If she thought I'd quietly step aside and let her destroy Dad's legacy, she was gravely mistaken. Because here's the tea. Patricia's contempt didn't break me, it lit a spark. I'm not just going to push back, I'm about to flip the script and change everything. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, hit subscribe, and stay with me for the most satisfying revenge you'll ever hear. Looking back, it's almost unbelievable. You wouldn't believe what I'll do once Patricia realizes she's played right into my hands. I've always felt invisible around Patricia and Carly. To them, I was little more than background noise, something mildly irritating but easy to tune out. It didn't matter how hard I worked, how much I achieved, or how desperately I sought their approval. Nothing ever broke through their impenetrable wall of indifference. Growing up, every accomplishment I had seemed to fade into insignificance the moment Carly walked into the room. One afternoon in high school stands out clearly, a day that should have belonged to me, but instead became yet another reminder of my place. I just won the statewide writing competition, a massive deal for a shy 16-year-old who usually stayed tucked behind a notebook. When I burst through the front door, certificate and trophy in hand, breathless and glowing with pride, Patricia barely glanced up from the magazine she was reading. "Oh, congratulations, I suppose," she drawled, her eyes immediately drifting back to the pages. Carly sauntered in seconds later, twirling her cheerleading pom-poms. "Guess who got named squad captain?" Carly announced loudly, tossing her golden hair over one shoulder dramatically. Patricia's face instantly lit up. "My beautiful star!" Patricia gushed, leaping to her feet, wrapping Carly in a hug. "You've worked so hard for this, you deserve every bit of recognition." I stood there, trophies still awkwardly in my hands, watching them gush over Carly's latest minor triumph. No acknowledgement of my win, no shared excitement, just a slow burning emptiness, growing quietly in my chest. This pattern continued through my adulthood. When I graduated university summa cum laude, Dad threw me a small, heartfelt dinner at home, beaming with pride and bragging to anyone who would listen. Patricia, however, spent the evening comparing my English degree unfavorably to Carly's newfound job at a trendy boutique, mocking my dreams of writing professionally as cute but impractical. Honestly, Victoria, why waste your intelligence scribbling down stories? Patricia scoffed, refilling her wine glass. Look at Carly. She understands the real world, fashion, influence, style, things people care about. Dad had gently placed a comforting hand on my shoulder, silently reassuring me. But his quiet support couldn't fully erase the sting of Patricia's dismissal. Carly smirked from across the table, perfectly pleased to see me knock down another peg. It was like Patricia took pleasure in making sure I remained unseen, diminished, always hovering at the edges of the family portrait. If there was an important event, Carly was front and center, bathed in Patricia's glowing pride, while I stood at the edges, often literally cropped out of photos posted proudly on social media. That invisibility followed me everywhere, lurking like a shadow even after Dad died. His funeral was especially cruel. Patricia orchestrated the entire event around herself and Carly, accepting condolences with melodramatic grace, as if they'd suffered the loss alone. I faded into the back pew, tears silently streaming down my face, invisible even in my grief. Yet every slight, every cold dismissal, quietly fed something deep within me. Patricia might have thought my silence was submission, my invisibility weakness, but she misread me completely. Beneath the surface, all those years of quiet observation gave me a strength she'd never suspect. And now, Patricia was about to discover that ignoring someone doesn't erase them, it just makes them stronger, smarter, and infinitely more dangerous. Dad always saw Patricia clearly. Beneath his kind eyes and warm smile, he understood exactly who she was and precisely what she was capable of. It was in those quiet, stolen moments, just Dad and me, that he revealed his truest thoughts. "I worry about her, Victoria," he once confessed as we painted the porch railing together. His voice was low and careful, as if saying the words aloud might conjure her. "She's got this way of seeing everything as a stepping stone, even me." That day, his eyes lingered thoughtfully on the front door, behind which Patricia lounged obliviously, shopping online. I had nodded quietly, painting slowly, pretending to be casual despite the cold worry creeping down my spine. "What do you think she'll do?" I finally asked, my voice tight. He sighed heavily, setting down his paintbrush and meeting my eyes seriously. "Whatever benefits her most. But don't worry, Vic, I've made plans. She'll never get to destroy what we built here." That cryptic reassurance had puzzled me at the time, but Dad simply smiled knowingly and squeezed my shoulder. "Trust me," he said gently. And I did. Months passed and Dad's health gradually declined. Patricia grew more controlling with each passing day, making it harder for me to find private moments with him. But in the weeks before he passed, I received an unexpected call from Gus Anderson, Dad's longtime lawyer and one of his closest friends. His gruff, familiar voice carried a quiet urgency. "Victoria, we need to meet. Soon. It's about your dad." When we met at Gus's cozy, cluttered office, his expression told me everything. He handed me a thick, leather-bound envelope embossed with Dad's initials and took off his reading glasses to rub his tired eyes. "Your father loved you deeply, Victoria," Gus began solemnly. "He knew Patricia would try something, and he wasn't willing to leave you vulnerable. Open it." Inside the envelope lay a single, elegant document, a deed to our family home, transferred quietly into my name months earlier, complete with my father's careful signature and meticulous notations. My breath caught as I traced his familiar handwriting, the ink blurred by my tears. "Dad did this?" I whispered, barely comprehending. "Yes, he wanted you protected. Patricia never knew, and that's exactly how your father intended it," Gus confirmed with grim satisfaction. He instructed me carefully. "When Patricia eventually made her move, and she will, we're to remain patient, let her think she's winning, document everything." A new fire surged within me as I clutched that envelope tightly, a fierce protectiveness stronger than any grief or fear. Patricia had spent years erasing my presence, manipulating our lives and pushing me to the shadows. But Dad had anticipated her every move, leaving me the tools to fight back. The quiet fury of his love wrapped around me like armor. In that moment, I realized how carefully Dad had orchestrated everything, not just out of caution, but to grant me the satisfaction of facing Patricia on my terms. He hadn't left me powerless. He had prepared me to stand tall, to reclaim our family's home and legacy with dignity and strength. And now, armed with my father's final gift, a secret legacy Patricia could never corrupt, I was ready. Patricia had no idea of the storm that awaited her, but she would soon enough. Gus and I kept our cards close to the chest in the weeks following that revelation. Patricia, unaware of her vulnerability, marched forward boldly, treating the home Dad cherished like disposable property. I watched silently from the sidelines, my stomach twisting each time she flaunted her intentions, but I reminded myself again and again, patience was key. It wasn't easy, though. Each day that passed felt like an eternity. Each small betrayal, Patricia discarding Dad's vintage tools, packing up his beloved record collection carelessly into boxes labeled donations, selling off heirloom furniture online, cutting deeper into my heart. Each evening after work, I sat parked across the street, carefully photographing her every action, documenting each injustice meticulously, as Gus had instructed. We spoke often during those tense days. Gus became my rock, his steady presence and gravelly voice offering comfort and reassurance. One rainy evening, parked across from the house, I called him, needing to hear his calming reassurance. "Gus, she's selling everything," I whispered desperately, watching Patricia load boxes of Dad's cherished baseball memorabilia into a sleek black SUV, the driver clearly a buyer. The careless way she tossed each item made my chest ache. "I know it hurts," Gus responded softly, empathetically. "But remember, every move she makes strengthens our case. Your father anticipated this. He knew exactly what she'd do." I drew a shaky breath, gripping my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. "How did he stand living with her for so long, Gus? How did he handle the betrayal?" Gus paused thoughtfully before answering. "He stayed strong for you, Victoria. Your father wasn't blind. He knew who Patricia was, but his love for you outweighed anything she could throw at him. You're his legacy, not these things she's throwing away." His words eased some of the sharp pain inside me. Each item Patricia carelessly disposed of had sentimental value, true, but Gus reminded me of what truly mattered. Dad's quiet strength, his unyielding love, his legacy, which lived on in me, not just in possessions. Yet, no matter how resolved I felt, there was one daunting event looming ahead: the annual family dinner. Patricia always hosted it at the house, inviting relatives who blindly adored her facade and friends who only knew the polished veneer she presented to the world. For me, it had always been a night of thinly veiled insults and tense smiles, but this year it felt like walking knowingly into a battlefield, fully aware of the ambush waiting. 2 nights before the dinner, Gus and I met privately at his office to finalize our plans. Gus laid out the carefully documented evidence, showing photos, screenshots of Patricia's online listings, copies of forged documents, everything we'd painstakingly gathered. "Are you ready for this, Victoria?" Gus asked solemnly, his eyes locked on mine with deep concern. "There's no turning back once we confront her." I hesitated only briefly before nodding with quiet determination. "I'm ready. This is about more than just a house. Patricia's taken enough from us already." Gus smiled knowingly, proud and comforting all at once. "Your father would be so proud of you, Vic. Remember, she thinks she's in control, but we're the ones holding the truth. Hold tight. Justice is coming." As I left Gus's office, walking into the cool night air, the weight on my shoulders felt lighter. Patricia had underestimated me for years, and now she'd realized the quietest voices often carried the loudest truths. The evening of the dreaded family dinner arrived, bringing with it a creeping sense of dread that settled in my chest. As I stood outside the front door of my father's home, my heartbeat quickened painfully, pulsing anxiously in my ears. I steadied myself, smoothing the front of my dress, and drew a shaky breath before stepping inside. The foyer, once warm and welcoming, now felt sterile and foreign. Patricia had stripped the house of every comforting trace of Dad's presence. Gone were the cozy family portraits and vintage antiques that gave life to our home. Instead, polished modern art pieces and stark furniture filled the space, as though Dad had never lived here at all. "Victoria, dear, so glad you could make it." Patricia greeted me, her smile dangerously sweet as she leaned in to air-kiss my cheek. Her perfume stung my nose, heavy and oppressive. "I wasn't sure you'd actually come tonight." "I wouldn't miss it," I replied flatly, meeting her gaze directly. Something flickered briefly behind her eyes, uncertainty, maybe suspicion, but she quickly masked it, turning toward the living room where Carly and several guests were chatting amiably. "Victoria's arrived?" Patricia announced theatrically, guiding me forward with a sharp, manicured hand on my shoulder, steering me into her arena. Carly glanced up, smiling smugly as the room's attention shifted toward me. The barrage began immediately. My cousin Mitchell, a loyal Patricia supporter, fired the first jab. "Still scribbling your little stories, Vic?" he smirked, swirling his wine casually. "You really should find something more serious. How long can you keep playing pretend?" Laughter rippled softly through the room, stinging my pride. My hands trembled slightly, but I kept my composure. "Long enough," I replied steadily, forcing a polite smile. Patricia chuckled gently, her eyes glittering maliciously. "We all worry about you, Victoria. It's been challenging for you, hasn't it? You've never quite found your place." I swallowed hard, gripping my glass tightly. "I know exactly where I belong." "Oh?" Carly's voice cut through the tension sharply. "And where is that, clinging to Daddy's memories?" She earned another soft laugh. Heat rose in my cheeks, humiliation washing over me like a wave, but I stood my ground. Carly took pleasure in baiting me, and tonight, emboldened by her mother's disdain, she was relentless. Patricia's eyes narrowed and she took a step closer, lowering her voice. "It's really for the best, Victoria. Once you accept reality, you'll understand this was never your home. It's healthier for you to move on." I wanted to scream, to throw my drink, to unleash every pent-up frustration from years of invisibility. But I forced myself still. Gus's words echoed in my mind. "Patience, Victoria. Justice is coming." The rest of the evening was excruciating. Every bite of food tasted like ash, every forced smile another bruise to my battered pride. Patricia and Carly dominated the conversation, openly mocking my attempts to steer my life, delighting in the discomfort etched on my face. Finally, dessert was cleared away, and Patricia tapped her spoon lightly against her glass, commanding attention. Her voice dripped satisfaction as she announced, "I've gathered everyone tonight for an important update. Victoria, dear, it pains me to say this, but it's time you heard it clearly." I braced myself, every muscle tensed in dread. "You are no longer welcome here," she said clearly, coldly, without hesitation. "Consider yourself officially disowned." The room fell silent, every eye trained on my reaction. But beneath the shock and humiliation, I felt something stronger rise. The fierce, burning certainty that Patricia had finally crossed her final line. Patricia's announcement echoed sharply through the room, each syllable landing like a slap across my face. The weight of her words pressed heavily against my chest, and for a brief moment it felt as though the floor had vanished beneath my feet. My heart raced painfully, embarrassment and rage swelling together like a storm. The silence stretched on, deafening and oppressive. Everyone in the room stared at me, eyes wide and expressions ranging from shock to poorly disguised delight. Carly's smile was particularly wicked, openly triumphant as she leaned comfortably against her chair, savoring the spectacle. Patricia herself wore a carefully rehearsed expression of faux sadness, as though she'd been forced into this cruel declaration. "I'm sorry, Victoria," she continued softly, a cruel glint in her eye contradicting her apologetic tone. "But it's become clear you don't align with this family's values. You're too lost, too disconnected. You simply don't belong." I opened my mouth to speak, but the words refused to come. My cheeks burned with humiliation, my throat tightened, and I felt tears of frustration prick at the corners of my eyes. Patricia had humiliated me countless times before, but nothing compared to this moment, the ultimate calculated rejection in front of the entire family. Mitchell broke the silence first, barely hiding a smug grin. "Maybe this will finally teach her to grow up," he muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Murmurs rippled quietly through the crowd, whispers of agreement mixed with faint protests from relatives too timid to openly defend me. I forced myself upright, standing taller even as my legs trembled beneath my dress. Summoning every bit of dignity I could find, I fixed Patricia with a steady gaze. "This is Dad's house," I said quietly but firmly, voice wavering only slightly. "You have no right." Patricia laughed softly, shaking her head dismissively. "Oh, Victoria, you truly never understood anything. Your father is gone, and I control everything he left behind. It's time you accepted reality." Her words cut deeply, each one piercing through my carefully maintained composure. A quiet sob escaped my lips despite my efforts to choke it down. Carly's eyes glittered victoriously, drinking in my distress. Patricia looked down at me with condescending pity, savoring her perceived victory. Then, just as I thought I couldn't withstand another second, my phone vibrated urgently in my pocket, jolting me back to the present. My fingers shaking, I quickly glanced at the screen, seeing Gus's name illuminated brightly. A wave of calm washed over me instantly, the intensity of the moment sharpening into crystal-clear focus. Patricia noticed my distraction and smirked, tilting her head mockingly. "Am I interrupting something more important, dear? Perhaps your imaginary writing career finally took off?" Ignoring her biting sarcasm, I stepped back, maintaining eye contact. "You've made your choice clear, Patricia. Now I'm gonna make mine." As I turned away, leaving Patricia and Carly stunned and speechless, I swiftly answered Gus's call, heart pounding with renewed hope and determination. "Victoria," Gus's steady voice crackled warmly through the phone, firm and comforting. "It's time. Patricia just made her final move. Everything's in place, exactly as planned." In that moment, as I walked deliberately toward the front door, away from the family who'd never truly loved me, I felt something powerful shift inside me. Patricia's cruelty had been her ultimate mistake. Her moment of triumph would soon be her downfall. And as I stepped into the night, Gus's voice guiding me forward, I knew one thing for certain. Patricia's reign of cruelty was about to come crashing down. My footsteps echoed firmly against the pavement as I left the house behind, heart still hammering, the chill of the evening air cooling my flushed cheeks. Gus's voice on the other end of the line was steady, confident, and reassuring. With every word I felt stronger, clearer, more resolved. "Victoria, Patricia finalized the sale today," Gus explained calmly. "She signed the fraudulent documents exactly as your father predicted. Everything's officially recorded. She thinks she's won." My breath caught sharply, the reality of his words hitting me. Patricia had truly done it. She'd forged Dad's signature, sold off his home illegally, and sealed her own fate without even realizing it. "And our documentation?" I asked quietly, voice trembling with anticipation. "Meticulous," Gus reassured me warmly. "We have every moment, every act, every lie documented thoroughly. She's trapped herself perfectly, just as your father hoped." Emotions swelled within me, a fierce pride in Dad, whose quiet wisdom had outmaneuvered Patricia even from beyond the grave. And yet, alongside the triumph, an ache lingered, the sorrow of knowing Patricia's greed had driven her this far. "Thank you, Gus," I finally whispered, tears catching in my throat. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Gus's voice softened, gently. "You've done beautifully, Victoria. Your father would be proud. Remember, she doesn't know yet. The confrontation tomorrow morning will be tough, but the truth is on your side. Be brave." "I will," I assured him softly, gripping the phone tightly. "I owe it to Dad." After we ended the call, I stood in the cool evening air, allowing myself a moment to breathe deeply. The stars above blinked gently, silent witnesses to my quiet victory. My fingers brushed absently against the pendant around my neck, a small, delicate silver heart Dad had given me on my 18th birthday. He'd whispered, "No matter what happens, this will remind you who you are. Brave, strong, mine." His words echoed clearly in my memory, bringing a smile to my lips. I felt his presence, steady and comforting, guiding me forward. Dad had given me everything I needed to face Patricia. The tools, the knowledge, the courage. Now it was time to stand my ground. Returning to my modest apartment that evening, I prepared meticulously for the confrontation ahead. Gus had scheduled an emergency meeting at his office first thing in the morning, inviting Patricia under the guise of finalizing paperwork. Patricia, blissfully unaware, believed it would be a simple transaction. Unaware she'd just walked directly into our trap. My hands trembled slightly as I gathered my documents, photographs, and files. Each piece of evidence represented a small heartbreak, a discarded family heirloom, a stolen memory. but together they formed an undeniable portrait of Patricia's deceit. As the night deepened around me, I found myself filled not with anxiety, but a strange, empowering calm. My reflection stared steadily back from the bathroom mirror, eyes clear and determined. Patricia had underestimated me my entire life, but tomorrow she would see the true strength she'd ignored for years. Crawling into bed, I drifted into a restless sleep, images of Patricia's shocked face dancing behind my eyelids. Tomorrow would mark a turning point, painful, difficult, but undeniably necessary. For my father's memory, for my dignity, and for the home that shaped me, Patricia's game ended here. And for the first time in years, I felt ready to fight. Morning arrived with a quiet, gray calm, the kind that settles just before a storm erupts. By the time I reached Gus's office, adrenaline pumped steadily through my veins, sharpening my senses. Gus was already waiting. Seated behind his heavy oak desk, documents spread methodically before him. He looked up, offering a reassuring nod. "It's almost time, Victoria," he said quietly, glancing at his watch. "Ready?" "As I'll ever be," I answered softly, swallowing the tightness in my throat. Before either of us could say more, the office door opened, and Patricia swept dramatically into the room, dressed impeccably and wearing her usual mask of polite confidence. "Victoria, what a surprise," she remarked coolly, her gaze flicking briefly over me with mild irritation before turning to Gus. "Shall we get this settled quickly? I have appointments." Gus gestured calmly to the chairs across from his desk. "Please, have a seat." Patricia eased herself into the chair, posture rigidly elegant. I sat quietly beside her, keeping my breathing steady, heart thudding heavily in my chest. Patricia's perfume invaded my senses again, stirring bitter memories of countless moments spent shrinking beneath her presence. Gus cleared his throat, addressing Patricia with measured politeness. "I've called this meeting to discuss the sale of Thomas Pierce's residence. There have been unexpected developments." Patricia frowned, visibly annoyed. "I assure you, everything's in order. The sale was finalized yesterday." "Indeed it was," Gus replied evenly, sliding a document across the desk toward her. Patricia lifted it, scanning quickly, then froze. Her eyes widened sharply as she absorbed the information. "What is this?" she demanded, voice suddenly brittle. Her hand trembled slightly, fingers gripping the paper tightly. "That," Gus stated deliberately, "is the original deed, transferring ownership to Victoria Pierce, dated several months before Thomas's passing, notarized and completely valid." Patricia paled, the color draining swiftly from her face. She stared at me incredulously, lips parting in shock. This is impossible. Thomas never mentioned this." "Because he knew you," I interrupted calmly, finally allowing years of restrained anger to lace my words. "He understood exactly what you'd do. He wanted me protected." She shot to her feet, the chair scraping violently against the floor. "You little—" "Sit down, Patricia," Gus warned sternly, his voice edged with steel. "This isn't over yet." Patricia slowly sank back into her chair, that face flushed with rage and disbelief. Gus placed photographs and documents methodically on the desk. Images of Patricia selling cherished heirlooms, falsified signatures, and screenshots of online sales. "You committed fraud," Gus explained firmly, each word landing heavily. "Forgery, theft, destruction of property, everything meticulously documented. The sale is void. The buyers will be informed today." Patricia sputtered angrily, words stumbling out in a desperate rush. "This is ridiculous. You can't prove." "Oh, we can," Gus interrupted sharply, voice unwavering. "Every move you made was recorded. You were so blinded by greed you never realized you trapped yourself." For the first time ever, Patricia looked utterly defeated, shoulders slumped, facade shattered. She turned to me, eyes suddenly pleading, voice shaking. "Victoria, please, there must be a misunderstanding." I stood slowly, meeting her gaze steadily, strength flooding every nerve. "No misunderstanding. You chose this path, Patricia. You chose greed over family, deceit over honor. Now live with it." As I walked calmly to the door, leaving Patricia speechless and broken behind me, Gus's eyes met mine, brimming with quiet pride. I stepped into the hallway, each step lighter, more confident than the last. Patricia's reign had ended, and now, finally, my life could truly begin. That evening, as the sun dipped low behind the horizon, I returned to my father's home, the home that was finally and unquestionably mine again. The front door creaked gently as I stepped inside, the familiar sound offering quiet reassurance. The house was silent now, free of Patricia's oppressive influence, but echoes of her cruelty lingered in stripped walls and emptied spaces. I walked slowly through each room, gently touching faded wallpaper, scuffed floors, and chipped door frames, all testaments to lives fully lived. The emptiness was bittersweet, both a reminder of Patricia's ruthless betrayal and a blank canvas waiting patiently for a fresh start. "Victoria?" Gus's warm voice broke the quiet behind me. I turned, smiling gratefully as he stepped through the doorway carrying a small, dusty box. Behind him trailed two of my closest friends, Lizzie and Owen, their faces filled with understanding and warmth. "You didn't think we'd let you do this alone, did you?" Lizzie teased softly, giving me a gentle, comforting hug. "It's about time we made this place feel like yours again." Owen grinned, setting down bags filled with takeout containers, filling the empty kitchen countertop with warmth and familiarity. "Tonight we celebrate victory," he declared dramatically, eyes twinkling. "Starting right here." Their laughter filled the air, breaking through the lingering sadness, chasing away ghosts of Patricia's cruelty. As we ate together, the house began to slowly breathe again. Each laugh and story giving new life to the memories once threatened by Patricia's greed. Gus quietly handed me the small box he'd carried inside. "I rescued a few things," he explained softly, eyes gentle and kind. "Things Patricia didn't see the value in but your dad treasured deeply." My fingers trembled slightly as I lifted the lid, eyes instantly filling with tears as memories flooded back. Dad's worn leather wallet, his favorite watch, old letters scribbled in his familiar handwriting, and small framed photos capturing moments Patricia had never valued. "You saved them," I whispered, looking up at Gus, gratitude overflowing. "I knew they mattered," he said gently, resting a comforting hand on my shoulder. "Patricia never understood what made these precious, but I knew you would." Lizzie and Owen quietly joined me, carefully sorting through each piece, listening as I shared stories behind every treasure, laughing softly at forgotten anecdotes, wiping away tears at reminders of Dad's quiet strength and love. "You know," Owen murmured thoughtfully, "family isn't always the people you're stuck with. Sometimes, family is exactly who you choose." His words resonated deeply, warming something inside me I'd long neglected. Patricia and Carly had never offered real family. Not truly. They'd provided only conditional acceptance, manipulative affection wrapped in cruelty. Here with Gus, Lizzie, and Owen, I felt something infinitely deeper. Genuine support. Compassion without conditions. Loyalty that endured even through storms. As night settled over the house, we sat comfortably around the familiar old dining table now covered in takeout boxes and memories reclaimed. The emptiness Patricia left behind had been replaced with something far more valuable. Authentic connection, warmth, and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're finally surrounded by those who truly see and understand. For the first time since losing Dad, the house felt completely mine, filled not with silence and sadness, but with gentle laughter, real friendship, and the quiet strength of the family I'd chosen. In the days following Patricia's downfall, I began building something I'd never truly had before. Clear, unbreakable boundaries. My first priority was ensuring Patricia would never again poison my peace. With Gus's help, we carefully crafted legal documents that firmly locked her out of my life. No contact, no access, no influence. I expected Patricia would test these limits eventually, and she did. Barely a week had passed when my phone buzzed aggressively late one evening. Seeing her name flash across the screen sent an unpleasant chill down my spine, a reminder of years spent feeling small and helpless under her thumb. But this time, I didn't hesitate. I ignored her call without guilt, letting it ring uselessly, knowing this silence spoke volumes. When she persisted, leaving angry, desperate voicemails, I took comfort in calmly forwarding each one to Gus. His swift response was quietly satisfying, a formal cease and desist notice that firmly reminded Patricia her reign of control had ended. "You're stronger than you realize," Gus assured me gently after one particularly exhausting evening of Patricia's persistent calls. His voice radiated warmth through the phone, steadying my nerves. "Each time you hold firm, she loses a little more power over you." As I sat quietly in the now serene living room, Gus's words resonated deeply. Patricia's desperation no longer sparked fear or anxiety, it merely confirmed how completely the tables had turned. I was finally free, and Patricia's attempts to claw her way back into control only proved how much she'd underestimated my resilience. I reinforced my boundaries in subtler ways, too. Carly reached out shortly after Patricia's defeat, coyly attempting to mend fences, though I knew her true motivations. Her text was classic Carly, manipulative, lightly accusatory, offering an apology wrapped neatly in blame. "Vic, I'm sorry you felt hurt by everything. Mom was just being practical. Maybe we can move past this drama?" The dismissiveness stung briefly, but I recognized the pattern immediately. I chose my reply carefully, drawing strength from newfound clarity. "Carly, I appreciate your apology, but there's no drama here, just reality. We've moved past pretending this family worked for me. I'm happier now. Take care." Sending that message brought unexpected relief. Years of tiptoeing around Carly's feelings, desperate for her validation, had ended. For once, I chose authenticity over harmony, truth over illusion. Slowly but steadily, my home and life transformed into a sanctuary. Lizzie and Owen visited often, filling the quiet evenings with laughter and companionship. Gus became a mentor and confidant, our bond strengthened by the shared battle against Patricia's cruelty. I found peace in mundane moments, planting flowers in Dad's garden, cooking dinner in our old kitchen, sitting quietly on the porch as twilight fell softly around me. Each action became a deliberate act of reclaiming, not just the home Patricia tried to take, but the life and memories that defined who I was. One night, as I locked the front door securely behind me, the solid click resonated deeply. Patricia's shadow no longer lingered. My boundaries were strong, clear, and unapologetic. She had no place here, not in this home, nor in my heart. As I climbed the stairs toward bed, the comforting silence wrapped around me like a protective embrace. Gus was right. Each boundary strengthened me further, allowing my true self, calm, strong, and deserving, to finally breathe freely. The fortress I'd built wasn't cold or isolating, it was warm, filled with genuine connection, trust, and most importantly, the peace that comes from finally standing firm in your own worth. With my home and peace securely reclaimed, I realized it was time to do something meaningful. Something to honor my father's legacy, beyond the walls Patricia had tried so desperately to tear down. It wasn't enough just to have the house. I needed to give purpose and meaning to everything Dad valued, restoring dignity to our family name. Sitting on the porch one warm afternoon, the breeze gently rustling through the leaves of Dad's favorite maple tree, I found clarity. Dad had always loved this neighborhood, quietly supporting neighbors in small but meaningful ways, helping elderly Mr. Garvey repair his fence, tutoring neighborhood kids after school, or offering financial support discreetly to families in need. He had been humble and generous without expecting anything in return, embodying a kindness Patricia never understood. I wanted to carry on that tradition. After weeks of careful thought, I decided to establish a community foundation in Dad's memory, the Thomas Pierce Legacy Project. Gus helped me arrange the logistics, patiently guiding me through the complexities of creating a nonprofit. Friends from the neighborhood eagerly joined the cause, bringing fresh ideas and passionate energy. We organized weekly meetings in my living room, the once empty space now buzzing with life and purpose. Lizzie and Owen enthusiastically took charge of community outreach, connecting us with local schools, charities, and volunteer groups. Together, we envisioned projects Dad would have loved: scholarships for aspiring writers, after-school mentoring programs, support for struggling families, and neighborhood beautification efforts. One bright Saturday morning, we held our first official event, a community cleanup day. Neighbors showed up in force, armed with gloves, trash bags, and contagious enthusiasm. Standing on my porch, clipboard in hand, I watched in awe as people filled our street with laughter and conversation, working side by side towards something greater. "You did this, Vic," Gus said quietly from beside me, a proud smile on his face. "You brought everyone together. Your father would have loved this." My eyes filled with grateful tears, my heart swelling with quiet pride. "He inspired it," I murmured softly, blinking away the moisture. "I just followed his example." Midway through the day, a quiet knock sounded at my door. Opening it cautiously, I found Mr. Garvey standing there, his lined face smiling warmly, eyes twinkling with fond remembrance. "Victoria, this neighborhood missed your father dearly," he said softly. "Today you made us all remember why." His simple words resonated deeply, cementing the truth I'd been searching for. Reclaiming my father's legacy wasn't about winning battles against Patricia. It was about living the values Dad had quietly embodied his entire life: kindness, humility, genuine community. By sunset, our street was transformed, not just cleaner, but alive with renewed connections, friendships strengthened, and hope restored. As neighbors gathered in my yard afterward, sharing stories and laughter, I felt a deep sense of gratitude and fulfillment. Later, as the evening quiet settled in, I sat alone on the porch steps, watching twilight deepen slowly into night. The neighborhood was peaceful, illuminated softly by streetlights and the gentle glow from homes around me. Dad's maple rustled softly overhead, a comforting whisper in the dark. In reclaiming my family's legacy, I discovered my purpose. Patricia's cruelty had once threatened to erase everything Dad stood for, but now, through genuine acts of compassion, his legacy flourished more powerfully than ever. This was my true inheritance, one Patricia could never touch, never diminish. The Pierce name was restored, defined clearly not by wealth or status but by kindness, compassion, and quiet, unwavering strength. In the weeks and months following the foundation's launch, something profound settled quietly within me, a deep, unshakable understanding of my own worth. It wasn't loud or flashy, it was gentle, a steady pulse of confidence growing brighter each day. I'd spent my whole life desperately seeking validation from Patricia, from Carly, from a family that never truly saw me. But now, standing firmly in the legacy my father left behind, surrounded by genuine love, I saw clearly for the first time. True validation could only ever come from within. One quiet evening, as twilight bathed the living room in soft shades of lavender and gold, I sat curled comfortably on the sofa, a cup of tea warming my hands. The house was still peaceful, no longer haunted by Patricia's cold influence, but alive with the warmth of reclaimed memories and genuine friendships. Gus's words from months earlier echoed gently in my mind. "You're stronger than you realize." He had been right. Patricia's cruelty hadn't broken me, it had awakened a fierce determination, a quiet strength I'd always underestimated. In losing everything I thought mattered, I discovered what genuinely did. As I sipped slowly, my eyes drifted to a framed photo resting gently on the mantel. Dad smiling softly, his eyes gentle, filled with quiet pride. A tear rolled silently down my cheek, not from grief this time, but gratitude. Gratitude for his quiet wisdom, his strength, and his unwavering belief in me. His final gift, the secret trust transferring our home, had been more than just legal protection. It had been a message. He had trusted me, believed in me deeply enough to empower me to stand against cruelty, deception, and manipulation. That belief was my true inheritance, infinitely more valuable than any material possession. Suddenly my phone buzzed softly, pulling me gently from my reflections. A message from Lizzie appeared on screen. "Thinking of you. Proud of you always. Coffee tomorrow?" A gentle smile curved my lips, heart warmed by the simple sincerity of her words. These genuine connections, Lizzie, Owen, Gus, even dear Mr. Garvey, had become my family. They offered unconditional acceptance, loyalty without expectation, love that never had to be earned or proven. My fingers typed a swift reply, arranging to meet tomorrow, grateful for the comforting routine of real friendship. Setting down my phone, I closed my eyes, allowing myself a moment of quiet introspection. In the stillness, I realized the truth I'd spent my life seeking. Self-worth wasn't something anyone else could give or take away. It wasn't in Patricia's approval, Carly's acceptance, or even Dad's proud smiles. It lived quietly inside me, waiting patiently for me to recognize. Now I finally did. I had reclaimed my home, rebuilt my life, and honored my father's legacy. But the greatest victory was learning to stand unapologetically in my truth. Patricia's power had always been an illusion, her cruelty a symptom of her own emptiness. Her attempts to diminish me had only sharpened my clarity, strengthened my resilience, and deepened my compassion. I rose slowly from the sofa, moving to the window to watch nightfall settle peacefully over the neighborhood. The street was serene, bathed gently in moonlight. My heart swelled quietly with a deep, lasting peace. I was Victoria Pierce. Daughter, friend, survivor, and finally undeniably enough. Have you ever felt trapped by the expectations of those who should love you most? Maybe you've experienced the ache of invisibility, the sting of betrayal, or the quiet despair of feeling like you never quite measured up. If my journey resonated with you, I want to hear your story. Drop a comment below and share your experiences. I promise, someone out there needs your strength, your insight, your voice. Because here's the thing, reclaiming your worth doesn't require grand gestures or public battles. Sometimes true courage is found in quiet moments of choosing yourself, even when no one else does. It's in setting boundaries, standing firm, and trusting your own voice above all others. If this story spoke to you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to define success on their own terms. Your worth isn't determined by anyone else. Not family, not critics, not the loud voices that shout you down, but by the quiet strength you carry inside. Remember, sometimes the family you're born into doesn't see you clearly, but the family you choose, they'll always recognize your value. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for seeing me. Most importantly, thank you for believing that your story matters too. Ask yourself today, who defines your worth? Reflect on it, own it. And when you're ready, share it. Your voice is powerful, and your truth can inspire others. Together, we're stronger. Together, we're heard. Together, we reclaim our stories.